another huge week for the market, Kyle. I think at one point it dipped above half a billion. That's good stuff. But ultimately, I think it's time to get into our main topic. Despite everything, we have been covering a lot of the market volumes that most people probably don't know that they are actually being powered by non-blockchain based exchanges that actually just simply support security tokens.
Absolutely. The kind of idea behind security tokens and crypto is blockchain everything, right? And have it through and through. But the reality is that an exchange for security tokens doesn't actually need to be using the blockchain in order to create liquidity for security tokens. In fact, as we've seen in the past few months or years, the majority of the volume comes from these non-blockchain based exchanges. T0, for example, doesn't use the Ethereum blockchain to power the T0 marketplace. They actually use a centralized system like most normal exchanges today, just using a lot more software in the middle to make an efficient and compatible security token trading process.
That's right. Just to be clear there, today, as we speak, smart contracts are not powering the trades on the T0 platform. Getting regulatory approval, which requires regulators to ensure that you are capable of adhering to all requirements, means explaining to them how blockchain is doing just that. So in T0's case, they are actually working with an approved broker dealer, that's Dinosaur, to trade security tokens before being approved to use blockchain to settle a transaction under their own ATS license, allowing them, of course, to manage that whole process in-house. So this explains as an example, a lot of the delays for exchanges all around the world. The more innovative regulatory approach, let's say, has been to propose the launch of, sandbox environments to allow for private testing, like we just saw with my company of the week winner, ECXX in Singapore, right? But most countries, including the US, these paths to financial market innovation simply don't exist yet. So therefore, we are left with either decentralized exchanges, as we've covered in the past, right? These peer-to-peer markets, or simply leveraging centralized, non-blockchain based exchanges.
Yeah, T0, Merge, as well as Archax, and many of the other leading pioneers in the space have developed fintech solutions that support the trading of security tokens, but don't actually use that blockchain or distributed ledger technology at all for their primary settlement method. Instead, they've optimized the current systems, which are largely analog to begin with. So to support security tokens on a blockchain-based system was simply too large of a task for regulatory approval, or it wasn't economically viable for these exchanges to pursue on initial launch. I know that many of them may be working towards this blockchain or decentralized integration, but the main priority was getting security token liquidity. We can deal with that later. There's no need to put the cart before the horse in that regard.
Well said. So now that I think that our listeners have a good understanding of what a non-blockchain based security token exchange or marketplace is, let's talk about the differences. As is already demonstrated, this model doesn't prevent security token liquidity, listeners. T0 doesn't offer 24/7 trading even at all right now, and as it still sticks to its 9 to 5 window for trading. But we did announce on the I think just last week or 2 weeks ago that they announced that they're going to change that. But the point being here is millions of dollars flow through their marketplace, showing viable liquidity for security tokens like OSTKO and T0op. So, there are maybe other drawbacks, Kyle, that you can shed some light on?
Yeah, at the end of the day, you really would prefer a fully blockchain-based exchange because of the automated benefits that smart contracts allow. But as we just discussed, it's simply not always possible in today's market. But we know, again, the industry's working towards it. So for now, we'll face on some of the drawbacks, like the issuer or transfer agent not having full ownership insight into who the owners are. As we discussed in our previous episode's main topic talking about self-custody, when an investor uses non-blockchain based exchanges, they need to send their token to that exchange, and now the investor is completely in the exchange's closed loop system. There may be an option to take the token back out of the marketplace, but ultimately, the point is that once the token is sent to the exchange, the issuer no longer knows who owns their token, and investors no longer have the benefit of true self-custody. On top of that, we still have to deal with settlement and custody agents on the behalf of the exchange. In the example of these centralized exchanges like T0, they actually have to use a third party to settle and clear the securities, which is mandated by the SEC. In T0's case, this is a company called CompuShare. I've talked to many exchanges who would much prefer to use the blockchain as their main settlement method due to the cost benefits and efficiencies, but they've faced serious pushback from the SEC regarding the reliability of the blockchain as a secure method. Hopefully now, and one day, it can be used as a primary method of transfer and settlement, but for now it's actually they are forced to use it as a secondary method of clearing. So a lot of these centralized exchanges actually do use blockchain to track these transactions, but it's just from a financial perspective not used at all. It's not relevant at all, and hopefully one day they can make that switch and make that relevant.
We did cover this, right, Kyle?
Yeah, we covered this in episode 44. I researched it and broke down exactly how the settlement process works. So you can listen to the main topic of that episode 44 as a standalone video. Just search in Security Token Show episode 44 highlights on YouTube, and you can listen to that one to get a better idea.
So I think you've made some really great points. I mean, you're spot on with your analysis. The exchange or street name that is seen on the ownership table is responsible for managing all the investors in their activities on their own ecosystem. So we discussed this over the last 2 episodes as well, actually. But basically, the exchange or marketplace acts as an omnibus holder of all the tokens. So as an example, Kyle and I each send our own tokens over to Merge, and now Merge is representing all those tokens, not Kyle and I individually on the ownership table. And if someone new on the exchange buys those tokens, the ownership table for the issuer doesn't change at all, right? Because Merge is still responsible for all those tokens there. And to your point, you may not easily be able to take your token out of the exchange due to certain regulations, and therefore you are now stuck with the exchange's ecosystem services, their custody solutions, and infrastructure to let you trade your original security token. So let me also explain that in the form of a dividend. A dividend will be sent to everyone in self-custody, right? So this will enable faster solutions because the dividends themselves are powered directly by the blockchain. Meanwhile, all the investors on the exchange will have to wait for the exchange to distribute the dividend itself after they first receive it from the issuer. Depending on the underlying operations of the marketplace or exchange, this could take more time than its blockchain-powered counterpart to distribute, of course.
And they also could take a cut, potentially, in terms of that distribution fee or something along those lines. So you could lose out there, too.
And because it's not perfectly on the blockchain, there could be issues with other individuals not getting the right amount of dividend or situations like that.
Right, centralized mess-ups, if you will. It's also worth pointing out that non-blockchain-based exchanges like Merge still have fintech solutions in place that allow for same-day automatic distribution. So smart contracts aren't always needed for everything, right? This can be an automated process without blockchain.
Absolutely.
But these
true.
platforms, despite not using blockchain, can still power liquidity for security tokens, Herwig, which you said that's incredibly poignant and totally true. One benefit of these centralized methods is that they can scale potentially more effectively and quicker than by using tried and true liquidity methods. Since they're powering most of the volume today, I'd say that they are not to be discounted as an important component to the industry and are a key stepping stone for future decentralization as the industry is proved through track record and reliability.
And of course, these are early days, right, for security tokens, and fintech always moves slower than other industries due to the regulation and limited competition. In reality, capital markets are still in the 1.0 phase, completely analog and largely human-driven. Fintech is enabling capital markets 2.0, but without the blockchain. In fact, platforms like SharesPost, Second Market, and EquityZen already did this before the security token industry even existed. But as we go from 1.0 to 2.0, we're already bringing in capital markets 3.0 with the blockchain, and therein, of course, comes more of a challenge. Trying to upgrade directly from 1.0 to 3.0 is no easy feat, and the entire world's capital markets will take decades to ultimately make this upgrade. But that won't stop the early adopters to bring in these benefits, including security tokens themselves, regardless of how they are traded underneath. So if you ask me, I agree. Non-blockchain based exchanges, they play an important role despite not being able to fully utilize security tokens per se. And keep in mind that they're also better positioned to upgrade to 3.0 infrastructure than others.
But it is important for issuers and investors alike to know that the liquidity solutions for exchanges and marketplaces for security tokens aren't by default built on blockchain or distributed ledger technology. Still, for most of your needs, they're sufficient.
And I think that's all we have for the Security Token Show today. I want to thank you all for tuning in and remind you that we air this podcast weekly on Tuesdays. You can also reach out to Kyle and I directly on Twitter and LinkedIn, or you can engage with the community, whether it's adding questions or comments, or even submitting your own news, and therefore we'll cover it on the show. So it's all really super simple to do. You can do it at stomarket.com/news.
Thanks so much for listening. We'll catch you all next week.